Oh, hey. Okay. What's up, guys? It's Casey from the 9 to 5ers. I don't know if you can tell, but I'm in a new office because we moved my old office upstairs and converted it into the baby's room because Caitlin is expecting the baby within 3 weeks. Oh my God. It's going to be a lot of fun. But we have recently been living through this pandemic, as most of you know and should know. And Caitlin and I were able to sit down on April the 2nd and discuss some of the changes and some of the effects that this pandemic has had on her pregnancy. During the month of March was when it all kicked off, and that was when we had a few more appointments left and a couple different things that caused that to change. So we chat about that in the podcast, which is coming up after this. I have included both audio and video in this as a try run and a practice run, so I hope you all enjoy it. I've taken a bit of a change in direction and focus for this YouTube channel, and I'm going to try and always relate the videos that we do back to the whole idea of living a 9 to 5 life and how it is that we are balancing and guiding all this different themed videos and goofball videos that we do to relate to a 9 to 5er, because I'm a 9 to 5er, Caitlin's a 9 to 5er, and most of my friends that are around here work a 9 to 5 job and have that activity in their life. So the videos are going to kind of work to relate to that. I hope you enjoy it. Thank you all for supporting me up till now. I just recently hit 150 subscribers. I'm looking to break 200 before the end of the year, and if I can, have it continue to grow going forward. There will be some videos with a little babe on there, which should be a lot of fun, and I imagine my hair can only get better. I haven't seen a barber in a month, so that's a thing. Other than that, yeah, if you like the video, subscribe to the channel. Please do put questions or comments down in the comment section down below. I'll ask them to Caitlin live, and maybe there's more things that you want to know about what her pregnancy has been like. It has had some effects on her and has changed the way that we've gone about what our expectations are for the delivery and for the birth and everything going forward. So thanks very much. Love y'all. Bye. So this is basically my test run.
Okay.
You are my guinea pig. But I figured with everything going on in the world that you and I can kind of have some fun and have a conversation, and maybe what it will end up being is a test run for this, but also maybe some information for people that might want to learn a little bit about what it's been like for us. So for anybody that doesn't know, Caitlin is 9 months pregnant, right? 9 1/4.
Yeah.
Expecting at the end of April, and it's actually April the 2nd. And
Today is April 2nd.
Today is April the 2nd. She's expecting at the end of April, April 25th.
Day after your birthday?
A day after my birthday. And so it's like been an interesting month of March, because that's when Canada really got affected primarily by the coronavirus, COVID-19. And so we've had to adjust and adapt how our everyday life was. Thankfully, we both have been able to work from home, but I think that I can't imagine people being in a different situation. So anyways, I just wanted to kind of have a conversation with you about it, put it all out on the table, and then maybe it'll help kind of let people know who might be going through the same things that we are. So
yeah.
How are you feeling today?
Today's fine. I mean, the hard part is every day is a little different, and you get more knowledge or more information every day, which is a good thing, and at the same time can give you extra stress.
Yeah.
But do we want to start from like the beginning?
Yeah, for sure.
Maybe about like what we expected and how that's changed.
Yeah. Okay. How about this? Why don't we kind of talk about our birth plan and how our perfect scenario of what it looked like, and then we'll try and bring up some of the things that changed, which affected the whole gist of it, because it changed day by day
Yeah.
from the moment that we kind of started going onto this self-isolation, because we're not quarantined, we're not sick, we're both healthy, we've been healthy throughout all of this, we haven't traveled. So what was your initial image, your initial picture of your birth plan? What did that look like to you?
Well, I think you would attest to the fact that I'm like a very planned out person.
Yep.
And I think through the process of like getting pregnant and everything, I'd heard from so many different people, all the different birth stories, and
Yep.
from people that I trust and, relatives who have gone through it who have said like, oh, everything went out the window, that I really honestly tried to go into it without having too much of a plan, which is
Yeah.
different for me. And I think like I was proud of the fact that like my ideas weren't super solid, and I was talking about the idea of like pain management and stuff, and to me the idea of like getting an epidural wasn't going to be a failure, which some people speak about. And
Yeah. And you didn't, okay, so you're right in the sense that your ideas weren't built there, and you did your best to not have expectations directly relating to the whole process of it. Part of it is interesting because it's one of those processes where you just don't really know what to expect. So until we did our what do we call it? Our prenatal class, for myself, I had no real clue about the different steps or even building a birth plan or anything like that. And I know in the back of your head you had an idea of doing it at a birthing center, excuse me.
well, I think we're fortunate in Ottawa to have choices, and so typically people will choose between three sort of primary providers for birth.
Okay.
You can choose your GP. I don't think that's a very popular choice. And so most people kind of choose between an OBGYN, which is a very typical thing, or a midwife, which I think up until fairly recently, when I did my master's and learned more about healthcare and healthcare delivery, midwifery wasn't something that was super on my radar, and
Yeah.
I was ignorant to it. And when I learned sort of how mainstream that is and how that's a really excellent form of frontline prenatal care and maternal care, that really became a big interest of mine to like go that route for our first baby, which is what this is.
Yeah. And I had never even, like, I've obviously heard the word midwife before, but in terms of what the care was and what they provided to the mom and the baby, leading up to and after the birth, I had no idea. Literally was to the point that I was like, um, I just assumed they caught the baby. And that was the gist of it. No, but that's me being honest. I didn't really understand what it was or what it entailed or what you got out of it, right? Because really that's all that you're trying to look at is what you're going to get out of it. And then later we found out that you obviously have however many appointments leading up to the birth, the delivery of the baby, and then they actually will come and visit you at home.
Yeah, which is a bonus,
Yeah.
which is nice. And then the options for midwives give you sort of a choice of birthplace. So that's different. Like I totally respect everyone's decision to choose what works best for them, and OBGYN is excellent and good care there as well, but that means strictly hospital births.
Yeah.
And with a midwife, you can do a home birth if that's something that's up your alley. You can do, and we're lucky in Ottawa, we have a birthing center.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where.
Which is 5 minutes away from our house, which
Yeah.
we're pretty fortunate for as well.
Yeah. And so midwives can access that center specifically. So that's something that gives you that extra option. Or you can go to hospital with your midwife.
Yeah.
Similar
right,
to you would if you had an OB.
And in your perfect plan, and we are still sticking with that plan. I knew it.
Here.
Maybe just let him out. In your perfect plan, though, you would, and we are still able to keep that.
Sorry.
It's okay. I knew it was gonna happen. As soon as I start talking, he just wants to start squeaking. In your perfect plan, you had um all intentions to do it naturally,
So
and
I don't like the term naturally because I think like all birth is natural. And I think sometimes people hear natural. And what we mean by that is not getting an
yeah,
epidural.
but is that not
I think it's unmedicated is more the more
okay?
correct term that like won't offend anybody.
Yeah, yeah, fair. Okay,
Because truly cesarean section, epidural, however you get a baby out of you is a natural way. And I
birth.
think
Yeah,
that's all well and good. I think the idea that I had in my mind was the birthing center. It's
yeah,
beautiful.
yeah.
It's, very calming. The option is that there's birthing tubs so you can hang out in the water. And apparently that's very lovely for birth. And so that's one of the only places in Ottawa that allows you to like birth and labor in a tub. Um,
And it's basically like you're getting a hotel suite without a
yeah.
kitchen. You get, a nice big walk-in shower, a massive tub, and a bed, and then
Like a
obviously
couch and a fireplace
areas, yeah,
and
areas that are supposed to be comfortable and that you can use for those activity or for the birth for those activities. So, anyways, okay, so perfect picture. You wanted to have the birth at the birthing center without an epidural.
well, that's just because it's not an option there. If
Right,
it was, that's still like
right.
a perfectly fine option. And
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, that's yeah, not an issue.
I think
And
what we learned, sorry to cut you off, I think
nope.
what we learned in our prenatal class is like there's just different options for pain management, and epidural is often the thing most people go directly to in their brains. And a lot of that is like Hollywood, like everyone sort of talks about the epidural, or just like other people talking about epidurals
Yeah,
who have had babies before. So if the birthing center offered an epidural, that's still like on the list of options, right? But it's like you may take different options to get yourself as
to
far
get
as
there.
you can. Um, and so no part of me in my birth plan was like foregoing the idea of an epidural. It was just because it's not an option at the birthing center, I wanted to put it sort of as a last resort so that if we had to transfer the hospital because it was too hard, or there was something wrong, then an epidural is on the table for that transfer.
Right.
But if I could do the birthing center, then yeah, there's no epidural. But it's really more of a choice because it's not an option.
Yeah, and like you're a strong ass woman because I know that if I was in your spot and even thinking about trying to have a baby, I would want the epidural and as much pain management as I could. So, so much respect to you for that. Just because I wouldn't be able to do it.
But there's definitely like pros and cons to an epidural. So a lot of people see the epidural as sort of like a cure all to the pain of birth, which I think it is. And I've not gone through this, so I'm not an expert. But there are some downsides to an epidural. And so that's also something like worth considering
Yeah,
too.
no, and they were actually really neat in the prenatal class to kind of explain some of those downsides and just how they also explained that the human body is, or the female body is designed and able to give birth without the epidural, and they've been doing it for thousands of years, and so it's not something that you're unable to do.
Yeah.
So okay, so now we have this wonderful birth plan. We are pretty much 8 months down the road, 8.5 months down the road, and coronavirus and COVID-19 starts kind of knocking at the door. And um, you originally had an um, expected end date of work or when you would leave your work by April, the weekend, Easter long weekend. So April, whatever, 7th, I guess it would be.
Ninth is left.
Yeah. So what changed was that a couple weeks ago, your boss kind of, when the coronavirus started coming around, they started saying that people would likely need to self isolate and begin working remotely if you had the capacity to. And we both, thank God, had the ability and the capacity to do that. And pretty much I packed up my laptop and started working that Monday, and you did following day, I think your boss told you to work from home, which was probably one of those realizations or one of those moments in your path or when in your pregnancy that was one of those more sad times, I would say.
Well, I think there's a couple things. So first and foremost, I think you hit the nail on the head saying like we're super fortunate for the ability to work from home and that we're not necessarily frontline workers,
Hmm.
which includes so many different people at this time. It's hard to name them all, but like a big kudos and a thanks to all the people who are
Heck yeah.
still sort of putting themselves in potentially harm's way to like provide groceries and medication and working in our hospitals and
Those essential
cleaning our
services.
hospitals. Like all of those people matter so much and they're the heroes of the story. And so the hard part is like, even though you know that you're really fortunate for the chance to work from home, when your idea is, on your last day, you'll go for lunch with your
Yeah.
team and you'll get to say goodbye and you're leaving on this really big high note and you're heading off to leave and sort of take a couple weeks to rest maybe before your baby comes. Like all of that looks really positive and sort of
Like fun
exciting
and exciting.
almost.
Yeah.
And I think what happened was sort of end of day being told, the plan is for non-frontline workers to start working from home. It's a safer thing to do. And, most of my team had gone home by then.
Yeah.
I wasn't really able to say like a formal goodbye, no real celebration in hoopla, although they were wonderful and celebrated me earlier. And you kind of leave and just go,
That's it.
okay,
Yeah.
that's it. Like,
I'll maybe I'll see you in 10 months, 11
yeah.
months, because with our whole idea of post birth, Caitlin plans to work for 9 months, and then I'm going to take 3 months of her mat leave off. So more so, I'm just saying that just so you understand the time. But
You said work for 9 months, but I'm going to take 9 months off of work.
please don't work for 9 months. Yeah.
And then I'll go back and you'll take the last 3 months.
Yeah, so that
Like
was one of those
split.
days that I was sad for you. I was so friggin' frustrated because I thought, it is supposed to be one of those days where you get to kind of give everybody hugs and say, I'll see you in 9 months. And there's that excitement behind it. And they're going to get that email when you have the baby born and the pictures and all that sort of stuff. And it's almost like that was kind of taken from you. And that sucks. So,
And in the grand scheme of things, like it sucked in the moment and it's a bummer. It's not the end of the world and it's just kind of just not what you expect. And so really that's sort of like a first world issue that I was having, but it was a bit of just a weird sort of anticlimactic way to leave work.
mhm,
And I think the other emotional thing was on the same day, I'd gotten an email from our midwife clinic just saying that they were starting to go
right.
to virtual visit. And it just felt strange because I don't know an experience other than midwifery, but it has been really like holistic and patient centered where, you go in and you have lots of time and you can ask
Yeah.
questions and they check, your blood pressure and baby's heart rate
They
and
measure
measure
it.
you and everything is really sort of hands on, warm and comforting. And
Mhm.
then all of a sudden to be told everything's going to be over the
Arm's
phone
reach. Yeah. No,
and
and it changed almost
like sort
overnight.
of boom, that's the way that this is going to work now.
Yeah.
It was hard to swallow all those pills, I think, in one day because although you're still going to be in good hands and that those people are still going to do their best job with what they can do in this situation, you just almost feel like, is that good enough care? Like, is that what I need? And we've been really fortunate that our pregnancy has been super textbook. We're
Yeah.
not high risk. Everything's been going well so far. So I could only imagine being in the same situation and having any of the high risk factors or anything going wrong.
Yeah.
So
And I think also having the um, baby coming at the end of April versus maybe being in month 5, 6, or 7 of the pregnancy, um, we're not fortunate. We might be in a better spot because of that, because of the volume of appointments that we had to go through. Like you had a whole bunch of different ultrasounds and lots of different tests and different things that were going on, and had we had to do it with this self-isolation going on and everything, it's still going to go on and people are going to be a little bit more careful around it, but I know from my trip when I went to the drugstore that when I went to the drugstore, I was super anxious just being around other people. And I'm a worrier and I'm hypochondriac, and that's just who I am. But I'm also usually pretty even. Like, I don't get overly stressed. But I came back. I just remember coming back from the drugstore and just being like, I need to have a shower. I need to
Yeah.
wash everything. I need to put everything in the laundry. And I'm overreacting as usual. But
Well, no, like I think in this case it's good
it's
to be
just,
careful, but
I just feel like it's better to be safe than sorry. And especially in this case.
I think
It,
you make a good point about the fact that like we're far along in our pregnancy, which is sort of like a double-edged sword. So we're like about to have a baby, and so all these things are kind of like this really important moment is happening sort of at the peak of this pandemic, which is a bit stressful. But I can only imagine people who are sort of in the middle of their pregnancy where they're still not certain that things are textbook and they
yeah.
still have ultrasounds. And one of the things that we found difficult was um, we had 3 previous ultrasounds and we were getting a 4th. And it was really just the position of the baby and the measurement of how big the baby is, like right before we give birth. And it wasn't a good one for pictures. It wasn't a great one to like really
Doesn't
see your
matter.
whole baby, but you weren't allowed to go.
And that was my probably lowest point during the pregnancy. I've obviously had some moments where, you just kind of have down days of how it's going to affect you or whatever. But for the most part, you're still more excited than you are like, oh, this is happening. But this was a moment where there's a real chance that I could miss the birth. There is a chance. If I get ill or showed any signs and symptoms of being ill, that I wouldn't be allowed to be in the birth.
Yeah, and the hardest part about that is like as a healthcare worker, I'm not frontline, but as somebody who works in healthcare and sits arm in arm with the infection prevention control team at my hospital, I totally understand why those rules are in place.
100%.
And so, you know, birthing centers or hospital birthing wards would shut down if a potential dad came in as a positive COVID patient and spread this not only to a mom or a baby, which would be tragic, but also
A
to
nurse.
healthcare workers,
Yep.
right? So
Yep.
like it's not worth it for that, but it's just such this defining moment with your first baby to watch your baby be born and to be there to be a support person and be
Yeah.
part of it. And luckily, we've heard reports out of the States where things seem to be much worse, where partners and support people aren't being allowed at birth.
Yeah.
And in Canada, or at least in Ottawa, we're still hearing that as long as people are symptom free,
We haven't got there yet.
that you're allowed a support person. Only one, but that's all you need.
I haven't even got there yet. I haven't even got to where the baby comes out yet. But I already feel like that's going to be one of the happiest days of my life. And I'm just, it's one of those ones where I'm like, oh, if I'm not able to be a part of it, obviously it's, going to be such a bummer and I will be crushed, but I will still manage. But it's just one of those things where you don't want that to be a reality, I guess. Anyway, so not to get too far from there. So we, so speaking about your birth plan, with the birthing center, and you're going to have to explain this because you know the reasons why. One of the pain management options that they have at the birthing center, which I was really looking forward to, would be nitrous.
Yeah, nitrous oxide.
Nitrous oxide, and so that's like the little mask where you can breathe on, and you get a little bit high off of that stuff. So I'm all for it, and they remove that from the birthing center and just labor in general, or laborers in general.
Yeah, I believe so. I know the birthing center is not offering it, and I don't believe the hospitals are, but I could be wrong.
Right.
I think the midwives are taking their information from like Obstetrics and Gynecology Society of Canada or whatever it is. So I think it's across the board. Essentially, the virus isn't an airborne virus. but any sort of procedures that could potentially aerate it and have it create aerosols, including nitrous oxide, require a lot more personal precautions and stuff.
Safety.
And so I think they just remove that as a pain management option just for safety for everybody.
Right.
Which I understand, but it was a bit scary because without the epidural option at the birthing center, well, that was sort of an option.
Right.
And everyone has their own take. I mean, we've not had this experience before. Some people swear by it and it was the most helpful thing in the world, and some people didn't like it and
like
it made them feel ill, and some people use it a little bit and it wasn't really a big factor. So you hear all those stories, and I guess the best thing is we've not done this before.
Right. Yeah.
And
So
so-
I mean, maybe not knowing
Yeah, like
is
if
the
we
best thing
had
to
a
know.
first birth and that was like the big factor in success, then it would be a really stressful thing to hear you can't have it. And
Right.
so
Right.
it's a bit disappointing because I think what we were told in our prenatal class is really understand all of your options and all of your alternatives and really be informed and have your choices be the thing that drive the birth.
Yeah. Yeah.
And as much as it's
all those options are fleeting away, like,
Yeah.
and you don't get this anymore, and
yeah. And so that's hard. It's
Yeah.
hard to just sort of like swallow that. So as much as we didn't really have a plan, even the minor things that we sort of were hoping for are sort of
yeah. And you went
fleeting.
to the midwife yesterday, which I wasn't allowed to go to. Again,
And that was hard for you.
another fun one. Yeah. And you asked for other pain management options from the midwife, and her only response was the hot tub. It's water, and just being inside water and being comfortable through that. And I think that that was maybe not what we were expecting. I don't know. Like, I don't know whether we thought there would be some other miracle natural thing that you'd be able to do, some root you could chew on or something, or maybe I could chew on it just to make me feel better. But I guess I don't know. I guess maybe we thought there would be something else, and it doesn't seem like there will be.
It's not necessarily that I thought there was a laundry list of things. I know that there's not a ton, and you kind of just push through. But it's just you just want all your tools available to you, and it's hard when you don't have a lot of options. When there's nothing else to go on, then that's hard.
Yeah.
And the big thing now with COVID being what it is in our community, there's this very sort of large sense of wanting to avoid the hospital.
Yeah, I think that's the one thing that maybe is a bit of a saving grace, is that you planned to do it at the birthing center, and it now might be the safest place.
Yeah, like I think with the midwives that I was talking to my midwife at my appointment yesterday, are saying that a lot of people are now opting to change their plan from the hospital to the birthing center or home birth. Like those have become increasingly popular. Yeah. I think you have to be open to whatever, because whether you plan it or not, you could have a baby at home. But I think it's just the fact that this virus, and again, we're still healthy and everything is good, but it's sort of making you rethink options. And that can be hard going into something that we've never done before and seems a little scary, and nice to just have as many options as possible.
Yeah, no, I agree.
And so the hospital feeling like a scary option, less pain management at the birthing center.
The hospital will just only keep as your last option, in the sense that if you're truly uncomfortable and really not able to manage the pain yourself through all the different things that we will work on and what we can at the birthing center or wherever, then we would opt for a trip to the hospital. Yeah,
and I think now, I think before all this virus stuff, I think it would have been like a very loose option. Like it wasn't, it was definitely something like along the lines of sort of last resort thinking. But I wouldn't have felt like that's a failure or a bad place to go.
No.
But I think now it would feel stressful to have to go.
That's what I was
That's where we're headed.
Yeah.
That seems like not
And I think no matter what through this process, you and anybody that might be listening have to find the place where you're going to be comfortable in. And we'll do another chat maybe after all the labor's done and we got a beautiful little baby in our hands who might be crying or not. Can't be any worse than this dog. But that picture in your mind, it's got to be flexible. It has to be adaptable. And you have to be able to kind of roll with whatever comes, because this has been such a
Yeah, I think
picture perfect pregnancy up until March, I don't know, 7th?
Yeah.
March 7th, it all changed, or whatever date it
I
was.
don't
There was
know
a
what day it
Friday.
was.
There was a Friday in there where it really came down to like all different.
And I
Just,
think that's it. Like, none of the things we've done have changed this pregnancy for the worse. It's all just this external factor.
yeah,
And so there's not much you can do about it other than sort of, feel your feelings and grieve your expectations and move on. And so, I think we're still very, very excited to have a new little baby. And I think ultimately, as long as that's a healthy, happy situation in the end, we can look back
doesn't
on
matter.
it and go, well, none of that really mattered. But
Yeah.
it's just this sort of unknown, and giving birth is sort of the pinnacle peak of endurance and strength.
Yeah, no doubt.
It's
And
nice to have lots of options.
I think also there was a day where both of us were a bit down too. And just this is the last point, and then I'm gonna ask you to give me, if you can think of maybe 3 things that you advice to give somebody on their way through this process, if they're listening to it or whatever it is, to have those prepared for you now. But it's more so just there was a realization too that when with all this self-isolation, like our family won't really have the same ability to kind of come and see the baby in the same way that we would want. Like in my mind, it was like, we have this beautiful baby. It gets past all that first little period where it can't be outside or whatever. But then after that, it's going to be just straight like, here, take my baby, hold my baby, play, do whatever, and there, that is going to be different. And that might be different for a long time for the little guy.
Yeah, and I think I'm mostly sad for like him, and the family members who I think were super keen to become grandparents and aunts and uncles and whatever. Because I know that you and I are very social people, and we love our family and our friends, and having them around as sort of our tribe and our village, and having them look after our baby and cuddle and snuggle is all sort of what we envisioned.
What we wanted, yeah.
But I think it's also like, if you look back on sort of like, when I was born, there's all these pictures of people holding me at the hospital, and it's all these like.
But even going to parties and socials as your parents were, and I don't know because I haven't had this conversation with my parents, but I know that we've had this conversation with yours, in the sense that when you were a baby, they just would go and take you there. You're from a small town near Renfrew, and your parents didn't stop their lives just because they had a baby, and we were in that same mindset. And currently, our lives are on pause, and so it's gonna be one of those things where, oh man, it kind of chokes me up, just because I'm like, we are both so social. We are both so invested and involved in the activities and the friends groups that we have to keep that in the back of our heads, that it's different and we have to adjust to how that is. That's kind of what I'm going to leave that off with. But unless you have a point to that, sorry.
Well, I would just say that like the only sort of saving grace is that we're not the only ones in that boat.
Yeah.
And I think that the fact that everyone's self-isolating means like we're not choosing to hole up in our house.
Yeah, it'd be different if it was just me, like I was sick and nobody could come visit me.
Yeah, if everyone was out getting together and spending time together, and for some reason we couldn't, then that might feel like you're really missing out on something. And so I guess you can kind of flip it in like, we're being told to do this for the safety of ourselves and for everybody, and so it's the right call, and you just have to grin and bear that, and what a story it will be to tell.
Yeah, like I think that's something that he will carry with him. He's a COVID baby or whatever, or not a COVID baby. He's just born during that pandemic. It's the kids that are going to be made in this time when people are home and doing that sort of stuff. Those are those COVID kids.
I saw a really funny like meme that was talking about um anyone who's talking about the fact that there's going to be a baby boom after COVID
Yeah.
are single parent, like, or people who don't have babies
Yeah.
yet.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. They're not the ones who are
else
stuck at home with their kids.
with their kids
Oh,
is not thinking about that.
and without naming any names, and we were doing a video chat, and obviously doing it with my group from work. But there's I don't know, tons of people on, and kids would just randomly pop up like that. I can't remember if it was a governor or whatever it was in the States who had his kids come in and the mom come and shoo them out or whatever it was. But it was the same sort of thing. And this poor dad, he's like definitely got two kids, definitely kind of figuring out how to juggle two kids and one really, really young one and one toddler, preschool or whatever. And
well, it's a hard position to be
I
in.
just
And
couldn't
I think
do it.
everyone was making fun of the reporter you're talking about
Yeah.
when his kids and wife burst into the room during his interview. And now everyone is that guy.
And now everybody's like, yeah, no kidding. With like
Everyone
the way that
understands
video
how that guy
conferencing is going
feels.
down. Okay, so do you have any advice? That's what I wanted to get to. Maybe one, maybe two, maybe even 3 points. If you can really think about it just from your perspective.
Yeah, I mean, I'm no expert, and this is like the first time going through this, so I can just tell you what maybe helped me, and hopefully that's helpful for other people. I think the first thing was somebody sent an article or shared an article on Facebook or social media, and it was entitled, "This discomfort you're feeling is grief." And I read through that article and I thought it was really, really helpful because it kind of named my feelings. And like, again, it can be sort of first world problems to some people who are really struggling with this or really sick, because we're not. We're healthy, and hopefully we stay that way and everything is really, really good. But it's okay to grieve the things you thought were going to happen or the way that you saw things going. And it's okay to feel the different stages of grief over those things. Because you're losing things. You're losing your
Without it's uncontrolled circumstances, an uncontrolled environment. We don't,
which is often what grief is.
yeah,
Right?
no,
Like
it's a
losing
family
stuff.
member dying
Yeah.
or whatever it is, and then you or a pet or something like that. And I often associate grief just with kind of death or missing out on something like that. I don't necessarily do it maybe with other things. I guess that's just whatever. But this is definitely one of those situations where our life completely changed
Mhm.
after March, whatever date it was, the 13th or whatever.
Yeah, we're very social and we have lots of activities and sports and friends and things that we do. We're very rarely home.
Yeah.
Like we had a roommate a couple months ago who was so surprised, He
Yeah.
was like, "You're never home any of these
Yeah.
evenings." And now we're home all of our evenings
Every
and
evening.
every weekend, all day long. And so I'm not gonna lie, there's positives to that. It's a different change of pace, but it slows you down and it lets you really appreciate what you have and to cook and clean and play board games. Like,
Well, and you and I are good to find activities. Like even just this, for example, I was thinking like, let's just kind of record a podcast, and we've done some YouTube videos, and just found other activities, whether it be looking up new recipes or a recipe that a friend gave us or whatever. So you do need to be a little proactive. You can't just sit around and then just get bored. You need to kind of go out and look for something. You can't see it, but under the camera there's a puzzle, and there's also these other puzzle books that we have, and escape rooms and games and activities, and
yeah, like whatever works for you.
Yeah.
If you're somebody who likes to read, use this time to read a bunch of
Yeah.
books. Like,
if you're a writer, you want to practice an instrument or learn a language. Caitlin's trying to learn French.
I did like 15 minutes. of
She's
doodling.
she's pretty much bilingual by now.
No, but like, when in your lifetime as an adult have you ever had this much technically free time?
Yeah.
Like we've as a society make ourselves so busy, and so that's also a thing. Like, embrace whatever this is, because it is what it is and it's not going to change. But going back to like my piece of advice, I think it's okay to be sad for a little bit for
Yeah.
things you thought were going to happen or the experiences you thought you preconceived in your mind. Everyone talks about when you're having a baby, visit with people, get out of the house, go to different centers, meet moms, do the mom groups, do classes. Like, don't do it on your own. You need a village. And all of a sudden you're being told you
You
can't see your village
you're
at
on
all,
you're on an island,
all by
and
yourself.
you can only go and get things, or you can't even go and get things. And I was a little bit strict about it. I said, like, no, Kate, I don't want you to go to a grocery store.
Mhm.
And in my head, I'm thinking, I can't get sick, but if you get sick in any way it affects the baby, I mean, that's just terrible. So we've been doing, that PC Express pickup groceries, not a sponsor, and we've also just been going.
But they could be.
Uh, Give us a call.
Gail
Like
and
like
Weston.
my dad goes to Costco, so we kind of tap into that, and just we're trying our very best to do the right things for social isolation. I have people that could get affected really negatively if I got sick or they got sick, um, and we just need to be aware of that. So
Yeah.
I think that's
But yeah,
that. So
it's okay to be sad, and it's okay, like, not forever. You have to sort of go through the stages though, and let yourself be sad. And there were several days where I felt really depressed and really emotional over some of the things that I thought were going to happen that weren't. And mainly it was like, I can get through birthing a baby, like, as much as that sounds really cocky, like, whatever that's going to be, that's going to be, and it's going to happen whether I want it to or not. Like,
it
it
definitely
is.
is now.
But the fact that, like, we don't get to go and show off our baby and have him be snuggled and visited by all these people who already love him so much is hard.
Yeah.
And I think that that's okay to be sad, that that's going to change. Like,
Yeah.
that's not a fun thing. My second piece of advice, I think, is just be informed. There's something to be said for too much information and scouring the internet for everything. But I think if you're shocked by something on the day because all of a sudden somebody with symptoms can't come with you, or you didn't think of a backup support person,
Yeah, be prepared.
like, you have to be aware of what the policies are, because the policies can change daily.
And they have been.
Yeah. So checking, the birthing center website, or
OPH, Ottawa's Public Health,
or even like the visitor restrictions at your hospital that you would be giving birth at, like, those are important things to keep on top of, because they could remove a support person and you may have a couple weeks to get used to that. And whether that make a playlist with your loved one so that you can think about things, or make some videos, or whatever that is that can help you get through that, do that. But know what the policies
what
are,
you're
so
going
that
in on.
you're
Yeah.
ready for that, so that you're
Yeah.
not shocked that that could change at any time.
Yeah. So I think that leads into maybe the last bit of advice. And it's like, be flexible, be adaptable, be willing to look for that little bit, or look for that avenue that you can use. Figure out how it is that you can get your groceries, figure out how it is that you can stay sane. Because Caitlin, you're very good, and we haven't had any really emotional or like hormonal days. And then you add in this, and you had a couple days where you were down, but rightfully so. Like, our whole vision of how the birth and pregnancy was going to finish and start, and everything was going to start, has changed. And we are going at it together. We are going to conquer it together, and we're going to be stronger because of it.
Yeah, and I think in line with your, like, flexibility advice, it's also like, everything that's kind of crappy or has changed and feels weird and strange, you can also probably flip. Once you feel like you've grieved the thing and have walked through your feelings, because that's an important part of that process, like, there are ways in which you can see the bright side.
Yeah.
So, like, as much as we're not able to go out and socialize and do the things we would normally do, there's a lot to be said for us being creative at home and trying new things together, and noting that we picked really good partners because we both enjoy each other's company and can spend time together, and we're lucky in that.
I've said that a couple times, where I said I couldn't be quarantined or self-isolated with many or any other people. That's the honest truth. I'm very social in big groups, but in terms of that closeness and that proximity, I don't like that kind of interaction as much. I'm really open and I'm pretty vulnerable with you, and I'm not with anybody else. Many other people. Some people are. But so I've said it a couple times where we came home from a nice walk and we just laughed our butts off and walked the dog. And I think he's been a big saving grace for us as well, as having him just to make sure that we get out twice a day for nice long walks and spend some time getting fresh air. But
And
anyway,
he's like
so
a fun focus.
yeah, exactly.
Like it's true that like having a dog is nice just in general times, but
He's
you
a
know,
good distraction.
he's just being normal. He
Yeah.
doesn't know what's going on. He's just pretty happy his humans are here.
Yeah.
But I think you can turn things around. Like the fact that this is happening in the day and age where technology is so accessible, and the fact that we can still FaceTime and see people face to face, even if it's through a screen, and we can still do work and work from home and get paid and not get laid off, and we can play games with friends over the internet and like watch Netflix, and we're not being asked a lot. I know it feels like a lot because it's such a shift in our day to day, but much worse things have happened in history that we've been asked to do, and this is not a crazy one.
No, brighter side of it is this is nothing. It's a terrible thing that's going on. It's affecting hundreds of thousands of people in the world. But in our little earth or our little world, it's going to affect us for a certain amount of time. And if we're safe and take the right precautions, we're going to be okay.
And I think that's the last piece of advice is I think we do have to take it seriously. And
100%.
if we take it seriously and then it looks like an overreaction, then that's what we're supposed to do. Like,
Yeah.
It worked.
We flattened the curve, or we helped the situation.
Yeah. I think Canada's lucky we listened to the health experts and they help to guide direction that we take. And right now they're taking it seriously, and I think everyone else has to too. And it's hard. You definitely want to celebrate that birthday or have people come visit your new baby.
Yeah.
And it's going to be hard to not have that happen. But, we know some immunocompromised people that even ourselves could get, affected by this. And so we wouldn't want to pass that on to anybody, and we want to keep everyone safe.
Nope. I think that's a perfect thing to end it on. Thank you for being my guinea pig. I hope anybody that does ever find this, if they ever find this, enjoys it. If you have any questions or comments or concerns, suggestions, throw it down in the comment section. I think I'm going to put this up on SoundCloud because that's just audio, but I also have some video in here too, so I'll try and link that up as well. But I'm always up for constructive criticism and help and whatnot, and help us guide us through our journey. Thanks, Kate.
Thanks.
Bye.